I knew it was going to happen. I was going to take myself off of mute. Let's start that again. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming. My name is Jasani Courtney. I am honored that you guys would begin to your holiday break to hang out with us and talk about how we can just come into 2026 full steam ahead, all guns blazing, to get those fulfilling careers that we all really want to have. And so we have a great panel of folks that are here to give you that advice. A couple of things really quickly, though, however. I want to give you a disclaimer. Everybody here is through the kindness of their heart. They're volunteering their time and their expertise. And so the comments that we give are not on behalf of the organization in which we're blessed to work. These are our own comments, and they are not meant to be construed as any kind of legal advice. This is just folks trying to help other folks in this journey that we call having fulfilling careers. I also want to start off with a couple of rules. First off, we as your advisors, and you notice we're using the word advisor, not panelists, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to be your advisors, and we're committed to giving you guys the best advice possible. Okay. However, there's a reciprocity here. We want to make sure that you guys commit to keeping it professional. What does that mean? That means this is meant to be a forum for folks to get questions answered that will help you make great decisions about your careers, that will help you empower yourself so that you can make the right decisions for you and not only bring value to the organization, but continue to help you with your career journey. This is not a forum to complain about your company. This is not a forum to moan and groan about how bad your boss is. We won't shy away from difficult conversations about leadership, but at the same time, let's promise to keep it productive. All right? Appreciate it. Thanks so much. So let's go ahead and bring in our amazing panelists. First, we are going to bring in Alejandra Villejas. Alejandra, welcome, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, awesome. So you may or may not have seen the episode I've done with Jasani before. Thanks again for having me back. But my name is Alejandra, and my focus today is to really help qualified professionals like everyone here just understand a little bit more about why maybe they're getting overlooked and how to fix it fast. My hope is that you'll walk away learning how to position your experience so that you do get interviews and so that you can convert those late stage conversations into offers. And maybe you're an internal candidate, and just helping you position yourself better than an external candidate who may look shinier on paper.
All right. Thank you, Ali. Next, we have the awesome Sean Barnes. Hey, Sean, welcome.
Hey, man, I am so excited to be here. One of the biggest things that has helped me in my career is developing a powerful personal brand. I am really thrilled to share all the lessons that I've learned. Well, as many as you will let me share today.
Well, we can't give all the secret sauce. We got to keep coming back next quarter when we do this again, right?
I know.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
It's going to be great. Next, if you're in Houston, you cannot be in HR unless you know her. Kiara Suggs, welcome to the stage, ma'am.
Oh, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure being here. I have been waiting for this day. I must tell you, no matter where you are in your career, it doesn't matter if you're an entry level, mid-career, executive level. Today, you're going to learn that experience is not enough. We're going to talk about impact. We're going to talk about value and how you can elevate yourself to ensure that you are seen for that next promotion, that next opportunity, that next big project, so that you can continue to elevate in your career. Get ready. Not only am I going to learn, you guys are going to learn as well. So I'm excited to be here.
I don't know about the rest of you guys. I feel like we can just go on mute and just let Kiara just go with it, right? All right. And listen, we couldn't do this from the man out west, the best there is, the best there was. We'll talk about the rest in a moment. Mr. Chris Cernine. Chris, welcome, brother.
Hey, good morning. I'm super excited. I think we're going to have such an interesting discussion. I'm going to talk a lot about really mindset and how to level up your mindset, particularly as you're getting ready to start 2026, and how you can use some strategies and tactics to make sure that you aren't stalling, whether it's in your role, in your career, within your organization, so that you start the year right and you crush the year to meet your goals.
That is awesome. So welcome, everybody. Folks, as you see, we have a 5-star assembly here. And listen, this is meant to be interactive. So we have gone through, and I'm going to tell you how awesome these people are. We went through a rehearsal last Friday, and almost everybody was very clear. They're like, Jasani, your agenda, that's cool, that's fine, but we really want to make sure that this is value add for everybody, and we want to make sure we answer your questions. So as we go through each module in each section, and oh, by the way, there are no slides other than the ones I'm bringing. So this is going to be this is straight talk conversation. Ask questions. Ask the questions that you wish you had a mentor to ask. Ask questions that you wish you had a friend in HR. But ask your questions, and we will shift our agenda. And towards the end, we're going to do something amazing that you don't get on many of these sessions. If we have time, we're going to actually review a resume. That's right, panelists. We're going to review a resume. I'm going to put it on the screen. We're going to go through it. And we're going to give somebody in this audience some real advice, real time. And then we're going to do the same for a LinkedIn profile. So we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a whole lot to cover. And listen, ladies first, we're going to start with Alejandra. Alejandra has been in the recruiting industry for decades. She on an annual basis, she reviews hundreds of resumes. She interviews, she participates in hundreds of interviews. She has conversations with managers when we are deciding who to hire and how much to pay them. And so Alejandra is going to kind of walk us down this path. So Ali, I'm going to start off with a question. With all of your experience, what is one of the biggest mistakes that professionals make either when they're applying for a job with their resume or when they're interviewing? What's one of the biggest mistakes you've seen?
I think most of the time that what we see is that people don't lack the experience. It's that they don't know how to tell their story. And they're not able to articulate the impact and the value that they can bring, not just to the team they're thinking about joining, but to the company that they're coming in to be a part of as well. So I think those are two different things, the team itself and then the greater organization.
Right. And so let's talk about the resume, for example. So let's say somebody has a great resume. They worked on it. They molded it. It doesn't matter how impressive and how many degrees they have. What is the one thing you can look at on that resume and immediately like, no, we move on to the next person?
I think people forget that you're not the only person applying to this role. You're not the only person sending me your resume privately on LinkedIn. And to be honest, and we've spoken about it before, is recruiters, we scan a resume, 6 seconds. That's the time we're looking, and we're not reading, we're scanning, right? So if your resume starts sounding like I'm just reading a job description that I can find on my internal platform versus you quantifying the value of what you accomplished, then I'm moving forward because you don't know how to tell me.
Wow. Okay. All right. Panelists, what are your thoughts? All of you have interviewed folks. What have you guys seen?
I'll jump in here. I actually saw some data where people were tracking eye movement of hiring managers and recruiters. And the first thing that they did is obviously they looked across the top in the summary section. So there's this going across the top, and then there's going down the side where all of the bullets are. Those are the primary areas. And so I think that speaks to how important it is to have a clear structure for your resume to quickly highlight what is your value proposition and what differentiates you. Because to Alejandra's point, you only get 5 to 6 seconds. And if they don't see what they're looking for, they move on.
Absolutely. So
I like being controversial, so I'm going to just ask.
Please.
What is stability?
Chris, you wouldn't be you if you weren't controversial, sir.
What does job stability mean to all of you? I started my career in recruiting, and many moons ago, job hopping was defined, I think, differently than it is today. So I like picking fights. What does a job hop resume even look like to you?
I think it's a good question. I'll say, in the past, when you would see someone jump every 1 to 2 years, immediately it was going in the trash. But nowadays, life happens. Candidly, I encourage people to pursue other opportunities if their current opportunity is not offering what they need. And so if it means that you're in an organization for a season, that's okay. Organizations have to plan for talent that are just there for a season. So I don't know if there's such thing as a traditional resume. I think to what Sean and Alejandra said, you have to show your impact and your value on your resume and move beyond job descriptions. If you write too much on your resume, if it's a job description versus really articulating what you brought to the organization, it's hard to even process because you are one out of 100, 200 people. So you have to figure out how to create a resume that stands out. So Chris, to answer your question, stability is it's relevant to the individual and what they're looking for. I do want to just say one thing about the resume, though. You have to write a resume not just for the impact that you've provided to your organization today, but you also have to translate that to where you're trying to go. So that may mean the next opportunity and using words that show that you're ready for that next opportunity. And as a caveat, when I say using words and language that translate, I'm not talking about ChatGPT. I'm sure we'll talk about this later. I promise you, we know when ChatGPT is writing your resume, so you have to humanize it and ensure that you are putting language in there that is human to you and where you're trying to go. So I'll get off of my high horse because I'm derailing us. I'm sorry.
No, it's too late because you took us down the path we were going to do earlier. And I know Sean and Chris, we've had a lot of sidebars about AI and using AI and things like that. And look, AI is here, right? I use please and thank you with AI. So when they eventually take over, I will be on light work duty when they eventually rule the world. But here's the thing, right? Using AI is not bad. In my opinion, it's one of those things, though, if you use it, it's still, like you said, Kiara, it needs to sound like you. But ladies and gentlemen, first off, take out the hyphens. ChatGPT loves its hyphens for some freaking reason, right? Take it out. And then make sure, like they always say, here's a comment that makes it sound like there's that narration that ChatGPT. And I see people who leave that in their resumes. And so it's just one of those things where you can use AI to enhance and be able to help you articulate your experience, because not all of us are natural, orators, or, written communication is different. But it should not be writing your resume for you. Quick thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, I think there are also things that I consider, particularly at the level of the organization, the type of role. If I have someone in a role that is kind of early career stage or more early entry in the organization, or a role where, let's say a more manual labor role, it's not a typical behind a computer role, and I see that you used AI to help you with your role, that's not a negative to me. If you're using your resources to level up and do something in a way that is also different, it tells me something about you. So I'm not necessarily against it. I am wary when I see maybe the same types of words in a pile of resumes, because there are also words that some of these Gen AI systems love to use over and over and over again. And I'll tell you that the fastest way to get me interested, whether you used it or not, is to, as I think we've already heard, describe the impact that you had in quantifiable impact. I improved X is very different than I improved X by Y%, or I saved Z number of dollars, or however you are measuring your impact, because what you are communicating is much more than just the impact. You're also communicating an ability to navigate data. You're communicating an ability to measure your ability, your communicating ability to be quantitative and critical. And you're allowing me to ask you better questions when we do sit down to talk, so that you can explain to me how you did all of these and I can understand how your brain works. When I'm interviewing people, I care about how your brain works and how you're thinking. And if you set me up to ask you better questions and then demonstrate those things to me, we're going to have a better interview.
Excellent. So we have a question. First question, Matt, thanks for joining, buddy. He's saying what we say makes sense, but practical tips on how we create an impactful resume. And I'm going to take his question a little bit, one step further, get a little specificity around here. Because there's a difference between what you want to see on a resume if it's an individual contributor versus a managerial or executive level role. So whoever wants to tackle whatever, I'm going to throw that out there. Go for it.
I'll just echo what Chris said. I think what he's talking about is specifics to how you've truly driven towards organizational outcomes. And I think that's key, right? Like, there's been this expectation in your resume, ensure that you put data associated with your role. So that, in my opinion, is table stakes. What's also table stakes is identifying the problems that you've solved, or highlighting, perhaps what level did you operate, and how does that level, for example, if you're a leader, how does that translate to maybe the employees that you've served? How did you develop your employees? How did you collaborate across the organization to show that you aren't just solely focused on just your role, and you're looking across the organization in a broader sense? If you're an individual contributor, I would say, oftentimes you have to think about, how did you contribute to the organization beyond, for example, administrative tasks? Because just because you're an individual contributor, it doesn't mean that you can't be a leader. So don't minimize the work that you are giving to an organization based on your title and the scope in your current role.
Mm-hmm.
I think just for anyone across any level of an organization, you should be able to explain what was broken before you got into that role. How did you change it, and what moved because of it, right? Whether that's team growth or individual growth. If you can answer those 3 questions in that one bullet point, then you're obviously sharing that impact that you're driving.
Yeah, I'll add really quickly. One of the things I've always seen is that 95% of resumes, folks, is people will take the job description and then they'll mold it to fit their resume, right? You'll see, as Alejandra said, you'll see a whole bunch of bullet points. And ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear. These recruiters posted the position. They know the job description, so they can see their own work when it's in your resume. And so what I think, just to kind of summarize what the team has been saying is, if you're going to be an individual contributor, first and foremost, talk about your impact. Talk about what changed. Talk about how you move the needle. Talked about, quantitative stuff, right? Also, I think the industry, the company you're going to go work for, right? If you're going to work for an engineering firm, or you're working for a pharmaceutical firm, or a bunch of folks who have so many PhDs, it looks like alphabet soup, right? The quantitative data really matters. I got this product line across the line, 27% beyond under budget, which increased profit margins by 14%. Holy crap. That is big impact, big time impact. And I guess the other thing I would say is, when you're going to be a manager, especially if you're trying to get that director or your very first VP job, it's no longer about moving yourself or moving your team. It's about, how did you impact the organization, right? Because the higher that role is, the higher your impact needs to be, or you need to be able to demonstrate that you can move in those kinds of waters. How did you create something that really changed how the company thought, how we worked? How did you influence people, right? Influencing people and influencing teams to accomplish goals. So I think that's really, really, really important when you're thinking about that. Sean, Chris, anything else to add with that?
I think one of the things that I take away from this is, you have to grab the recruiter's attention by having the resume structured the right way. Once you have their attention, make sure that you are clearly articulating quantifiable value that you have provided to the organization. So grab their attention and then quantify the impact.
And the last thing I would say is this is your story. So I think the thread of this is, it's you. How are you uniquely not only situated well for the role, but how are you uniquely different from the pile of 300 other people that just applied for this job? If you can put together a document that helps you tell your unique story, you're going to be in a better spot.
Right. And I think the last thing I'll say about this is, folks, think about your career and your resume as a book, right? You read a book, and the book has a number of chapters, and each job and position that you've had is a chapter. And so you want that story to be a novel that somebody wants to read. And they want to find out more and learn more about it. So if you look at your resume right now, is that a story that even interests you versus someone else who doesn't know you? Take a look at that. Or is it just a bunch of bullet points that just restates your job description? Or did you talk about, if you pick me, it is obvious by this piece of paper what I can do for you? Now, do I dare you to miss out on this, right? And that's literally what you should take from that. Great question. I want to switch to the interviewing portion, though. We spent a lot of time talking about resume, and Matt, If I did not answer your question to a level of sufficiency, please feel free to break it down even further. Hopefully we answered your question. Let's talk about interviewing. Alejandra, where have you seen even experienced professionals go wrong in interviewing?
I think sometimes it's mostly in the final stages. Um, I think they try to confirm their competence and ability to do the role, and and to be clear, everyone that did make it to the final round is because they've been vetted, right? We know you can do the job. We know you've spoken things that obviously have brought you here, but now it's about, can I trust you, right? Can I trust you to change the things I need you to change? Can I trust you to do things differently and new and to where we're driving business and growing it? And so they maybe aren't still articulating correctly how they can join the culture of the team, and vice versa. I think that that's where they shift. They should be shifting focus, and they don't. They continue focusing on individual wins instead of owning team change. Um, that's where I've seen it. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add.
So I agree with you, Alejandra. When folks only talk about themselves as opposed to the how they've used their influence to support others so that they blossom, I think that is a fatal flaw. Because the further you go up in an organization, it's less about you. It's more about the others around you, to include your peers. I'll tell you this. I ask this question in every single interview, and when folks can't speak about the company that they are applying to and correlating it with like their values or why it's important, it's an immediate out. And so you must do your research on the company, and I think it's important to correlate how you will bring value to that company and maybe how it correlates with your values and things of that nature. If your interview was perfect but you can't speak about the company, it's tough.
Oh, look, I'm giving you. I don't know how it sounds, but we are in trouble, right? But no, I think that's right, because I think a lot of times people just go out and apply for these jobs, and they apply for so many jobs. And look, I get it, right? The job market is hard. They're applying at multiple companies, but if ABC recruiter calls you and says, I'm calling from XYZ company, don't show up on that bad boy not refreshing your memory about what it is you applied for. I actually had a person a long time ago who interviewed and forgot which company they were talking to, and actually was talking about a competitor, right? Because they didn't have their stuff together. You get that job because
Chris, this is where your question comes in handy when you talk about stability. That's when you know if somebody's just job hopping versus I can sniff it. I know.
Yeah. So we have a question here from Mr. Ferguson, Mr. John Ferguson. How are you, sir? I'm glad you're able to join us from sunny Florida. Thoughts on cover letters? You know what? I don't know. It's been a long time since I've even played with cover letters. Is there benefit to that, folks?
I don't think so. I think because oftentimes your cover letter is repetitive from your resume. And again, back to the sound bites. And this is my personal opinion. You guys may have a different perspective, but I don't think that cover letters are mandatory anymore. That's why we have LinkedIn. We look at your LinkedIn profile that speaks to your brand.
I will tell you on that point, if anything beyond maybe entry level roles, particularly when you're starting to get into management level roles or professional roles where the scope and scale of your impact on an organization is larger, if that LinkedIn profile is a dust bowl, I start asking questions. It's just a little at this day and age. And separate from that, I do not remember the last time I even received a cover letter for a role. And I think you can leverage in 2025 things like your LinkedIn, because it's common, not just HR, hiring managers are going to your LinkedIn and looking at who you are. And it is not uncommon for us when we are passing a candidate to a hiring manager, they're looking at your LinkedIn before they look at your application. And so I think in many ways your LinkedIn profile has replaced that storytelling element of a cover letter. I will tell you though, I know recruiters that pass to candidates. I've worked with a couple that say that you need to have a cover letter, and we've told the recruiters we don't personally care about a cover letter. But I do know that there are people out there who ask for them. I don't find a tremendous amount of value in that. I value the storytelling on your LinkedIn profile more than a cover letter.
Yeah, and I'll just say to kind of end this subject. It seems like for the most part, we're saying cover letters are kind of antiquated. We'll probably go to LinkedIn and get everything that we know. Now, I will say this, and Tanya Prompta, here's the thing. You're absolutely right. There are some managers and they tend to be more seasoned in their career that love cover letters. Right. They love cover letters. They love handwritten thank you notes at the end. They love the thanks for the interview. And if it's really close, I will say, let's just say it's between you and one other candidate and you're pretty much neck and neck, that could push you over the edge. But I mean, I would put more oomph into preparing for the interview and making sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. We got another question. This one directly to you, Alejandra. This is a good one. This is a good old-fashioned question. How many pages are acceptable for a resume, or does it depend on the level of experience? Go for it. I know the answer. I'm gonna put a finger up.
2. A strong 2. If you're early career, no more than 1. There's no reason why anyone who's maybe less than 5 years is having more than 1 page, unless you had amazing internships where you have something or did something that the company is still exercising today. But even then, if you're early career, 1. If you're mid to senior, 2.
Impactful 2, not fluffy 2.
Yes, intentional, please.
Yeah.
Intentional. It is intentional. And I think what we're all just saying is, look, guys, you got to separate yourself from the pack. You're not the only one looking for a job. And there's a lot of good, smart people looking for jobs. So just remember you're competing against that. Now, we were going to move on, but there's more questions. So again, this is about you guys. So we're going to stay on here until we get your questions answered. So really quickly, Ron Stevenson says, thoughts on time and position. Ron, how are you, sir? Thanks for joining, man. Time and position and company. What's a good time period nowadays?
I'm an outlier. I was at my last company for 12. I've been here for almost 7. I'll tell you, it depends. But I'm going to just use myself. I think I was fortunate that I had a variety of different roles. It's part of what makes my profile look different, maybe than other people in HR. I don't hold against people. You've been at a company for a while or a position for a while, because I'm looking at the whole story. What is interesting to me is the people who I can't quite understand the story by just looking at the titles or the companies, but they're able to craft a story through how they describe what they did and why they did, whether that's through their LinkedIn profile or their resume. I find those interesting, but I'm not knocking someone for being in a role for 3, 4, 5 years. I do think there was a period, back to the job hopping question I asked, or this idea that, you've been at a company too long. I don't personally subscribe to these ideas, particularly when you can demonstrate to me scope and scale of impact is changing over time, even within a role, or if you are in a position where, like, this is what I want to do and why I want to do it. I've had some really amazing interviews with folks who have been in similar roles for multiple decades of their career and was very clear about what they want to do, why they want to do it, what they're looking for, all of that. And I thought that they were wonderful candidates. We've even hired some of them. And I have had people explain very clearly to our organization why I was in more senior roles and why I am no longer in the phase of the career that I'm in and what I'm looking for in an employer. And folks who can tell those stories and they make sense, they match what I'm looking for and what they're looking for, are great candidates. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule of you've done this for too long, or you've switched careers because the seasons have changed. As long as you can tell a story and it makes sense and you can communicate your values and you can communicate what you bring to the table, I think that's more important.
All right. So we're gonna move on to the next topic. There's a couple of questions in the chat that actually lead us to the next segment, which our boy Sean Barnes is going to lead us to. And we've been talking a lot about LinkedIn. And I'm going to tell you, so what's awesome about Sean is the one who kicked me in my ass to get and to take my LinkedIn seriously. I was always on LinkedIn because I like to talk and I like to socialize, but I wasn't usually using it intentionally. So Sean, talk to us about the power of networking, and then we'll get to some of these questions people are specifically asking about updating and keeping things up to snuff. Go for it, sir.
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen is when managers, leaders, executives end up transitioning from one company to another, they usually find themselves in this frantic state of, oh, I've got to do something on LinkedIn. I've got to start going to networking events. And the unfortunate reality is you should have been doing it the entire time. Whenever it comes to building a personal brand, it's about so much more than just content creation on social media. If you were to distill brand all the way down to one word, it's association. What are you known for? What do people say about you when you're not in the room? So you have to be very intentional about what brand do I want to build? And then you focus on building that in the virtual space, online, on LinkedIn, and also do the same thing by attending networking events, going to conferences, and building relationships along the way. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And so I think that's where a lot of people start getting tripped up of, oh, I've got to create content. Oh, I don't like social media. Okay, but this is part of building a personal brand, and attention is our number one currency right now.
Right. I think that's really, really important because it's about intention. And one thing I'll say, and then I'll open it up for the panel, is that do not compare your LinkedIn journey with anyone else's, right? Because everybody has a different goal, right? One of the things I committed to myself was to try to position to be kind of a thought leader to help people have better careers, great careers. Because guess what? If people have great careers, my job in HR tends to be a whole lot easier. But at the end of the day, though, don't think that you have to chase 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 followers like it's freaking Facebook. It's about being intentional, reaching out to groups that are in your industry, your field, your interests, and expanding your network and your knowledge. Because, folks, there are some really, really smart people out there. And I'll be honest, really quickly, Sean, Kiara, Chris, I met you guys through the power of networking, right? We didn't run into each other through normal circles. Sean and I met at an HR conference, and we started talking about video games. And next thing you know, we looked at each other. We're like, did we just become best friends? We just became best friends, right? and with Kiara, listen, she's a LinkedIn superstar. Let's be clear. So not everybody can be Kiara. And she was my hero before we even met. But I followed her. I put some meaningful content on her posts. And so when I walked up to her, because you didn't want to come off that creepy LinkedIn stalker vibe, right? She kind of knew who I was because my name is spelled kind of funny. And so we just kind of started off with that. And then Chris and I met through someone else. I think John Ferguson, who was who's on this call, introduced us. John and I became cool through the SHRM Executive Networking group. And it's just, iron sharpens iron and you meet people, but that's the purpose of LinkedIn, is to enhance your networking, to improve your space and your knowledge base, to have a better career and knowledge skill set. Kara?
Yeah, you're spot on, Jasani. Just a couple of things that I appreciate that you called out, and you mentioned thought leadership. So what's important on LinkedIn is you can be a silent participant and just follow everyone else, or you can be intentional with differentiating yourself. And what does that look like? You've got to Sean's point, you've got to find out what you want to be known for. So if there's a topic that's of interest, if there is, something happening in your industry that is important to your audience. For those of you who are in an executive role who are in pursuit of board positions or things of that nature, understand your audience and ensure that you're leaning into that. So that could mean that you are reposting. I'll speak from an HR perspective. Johnny Taylor highlights so many poignant topics that oftentimes I'm commenting or I'm reposting. Or if there's a topic that you're researching, put it out there and ask questions. Now you can use ChatGPT to help you think through, here's the topic. Here are my thoughts. How can I engage with the LinkedIn audience to get more people to add, input to the topic of interest? So one thing that you said, Jasani, thought leadership is important when you're defining your brand. The other, and I've got to give credit to you, you're incredibly amazing at highlighting other people's success. And so that talk about selflessness in your profession and what makes you stand out. Highlight other people and talk about why you're highlighting them and how that aligns to, maybe what you're pursuing, or why that person brings interest to you, so that you can show who you are innately, which is, in Jasani, I describe you as a giving leader. You're a standout professional who's not always thinking about yourself. So again, it's those types of things that make you stand out on the internet, particularly when you're thinking about your brand.
Kiara, I would like to pick up on that, because one of the most powerful things that I have come to realize is that if you approach every single interaction with the mindset of I am going to give more than I'm going to receive from this interaction, I'm going to give more than I receive, all of a sudden you start building a brand and reputation for lifting everyone else up around you. Now, this has some challenges associated with it, because more and more and more people are going to want to be around you, which is good. It can be exhausting, but what it does is it presents an incredible amount of opportunities for you. Whether you choose to exercise those opportunities, that is entirely up to you. But when everybody knows Jasani is a giver, he is going to raise everybody up. Kiara is a giver, she is going to raise everybody up. All of a sudden, all of the people out there in the world, they're going to start to coalesce around you, and iron sharpens iron, as it was just mentioned earlier. That is how we lift everybody up and help everybody be successful, and you go along with it.
Yeah, I'll point out maybe two very practical things. Go back to the hiring manager example I gave before. They're not just looking at your LinkedIn. They also Google search your name more than you probably realize. Type your name into Google, see what comes up. I recall what got me to even pay attention to any of this was going through the process when I was not in HR, when I was a hiring manager in a different part of the business, looking at people online going, why would you let, when you're applying for jobs, people see this about you, this story about you? And so I think part of it is, particularly around the brand idea, control the story. It doesn't end at your resume and it doesn't end at your LinkedIn profile, but control the story of you. And there are a lot of strategies and tactics to do that. The other one that I think is super impactful, and I can give a personal example, don't just go to the conference. Go to the conference and actually leverage all of these amazing people around you and engage with folks. I spent years going to conferences where I sit in the session, I take all the notes, I learn everything I can, then I go back to my hotel room and I get a bunch of work done. And I wasn't engaging with other people that I had all these opportunities to do that with. And so much changed about myself in my career personally. And even with the perspective of let me give as much as I can to others, you get so much back from that, and the networks that you build and the people you interact with are powerful. And particularly for folks maybe where like conferences are not a normal part, it's not a normal part of every job in every part of the organization. There are industry groups and other ways that you can connect with people. You will be amazed at the tidbits that you hear, not in anything other than the hallway conversation, that become very impactful to you. But I would start with the intentionality that folks described. I would Google search your name after this and go see what pops up, and like, do you want a hiring manager seeing it? And then start looking at how can I control that story of me, particularly online, because it isn't just the HR folks looking at that. It's everybody in an organization. It's even your own organization looking at it about you as you're trying to move up and apply for other jobs within your organization and all that.
All right. I'm going to jump in really quickly because I want to move, because there's several questions and we're going to try to hit some of them. But ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot of experience, not only in this advisory group, but we also have a lot of experience in the chat. So again, this is meant to help each other. It's about community. We just talked about giving back. So if there's a question in the chat that we have not gotten to and you have some expertise you want to share, it don't have to be us. You guys can definitely share your expertise as well, because we want to make sure everybody's professional spirit is getting fed today. So really quickly, I do want to hit something that Sean definitely said about the intentionality of LinkedIn, right? And ladies and gentlemen, the one thing I want to say is you don't have to be an extrovert. I laugh at Sean. If you watch some of his content on Way of the Wolf podcast, so he keeps talking about that he's a freaking introvert. I don't believe it. I have yet to believe it. I have yet to see evidence of said introvertness, but I believe him. I trust him. But you don't have to be this extrovert. And I would rather have 100 quality connections, people I can ping when I'm running into a problem in my own organization or my own career journey, than having 10,000 people that I don't freaking know. It's about intentionality, and it's about having a network. So when your boss comes and says, hey, Chris, we're thinking about implementing some kind of AI strategy, and you've been one of those people that's kind of been afraid of AI, but you got to come to this meeting prepared. I know there's a lot of people in Chris's circle that knows a lot about different types about generative AI and things like that he can ping so that he can go off and look good. Or I've also seen where people have asked, hey, do you have a presentation on this? Now, I wouldn't put anything that you shouldn't put out there externally facing, but it's about tapping into that resource so you don't have to know everything, but we help each other shine because of the power of your network. Really quickly, Kiana Mitchell Watson asked the question, what are the key elements of an impactful LinkedIn profile? Who wants to tackle that question?
I'll jump in on that. And I'm going to start by sharing what is not an impactful LinkedIn profile. Default banner image, your profile picture being you with sunglasses holding a fish, not having any sort of post or content being made. That is not an impactful LinkedIn profile. And as we think about this from an executive, peer, hiring manager perspective, they're going to Google you. They're going to look you up on LinkedIn. And if there is nothing there, what message does that signal? So you want to think about things like that. Getting a headshot that's relatively cheap and easy to do. I mean, you can use AI for headshots, but people can still tell. So I would caution against that. But go look at tools like Canva. It's free. You can make a nice, visually appealing banner image, and then spend a little bit of time on your career history, highlighting the roles, the responsibilities, and some of the impact that you have made at those organizations. You want there to be some alignment between LinkedIn and your resume so that people can see continuity between the two, and then post and engage on people's stuff. I've lost track of how many times I'll go look at somebody's LinkedIn profile. They haven't posted anything in 11 months. It's like, okay, one could potentially argue that they've got their head down, they're doing their job, which yes, but hiring managers, they're not going to really know who you are or what you're about. So you can repost things. That's the easy button, but leave a sentence or two of what your actual thoughts are. So make it visually appealing, throw some pictures up of you at conferences and things like that, and then comment on other people's content in a meaningful way. Those are some quick and easy tips that will differentiate your LinkedIn profile from the other billion people that are on the platform.
All right. And one thing I do want to mention that Sean said earlier, I don't want us to forget, is when we talk about networking and building your brand, the time to do that is not when you're looking for a job, right? That is a stressful time. You got enough to worry about than going out there and posting on freaking LinkedIn, right? You build your brand. It's like building up your financial nest egg. You build up your financial nest egg so that when you get a flat tire, which we all eventually will, it's an inconvenience, not an obstacle, right? You build up your brand, you build up your network. I'm going to send this one over to Kiara. So this is great information. How do you make your LinkedIn truly speak to who you are as a professional, and how often should you post or update? Oh man. All right.
I think you guys just answered it. It's really be active. I talk to some people and they'll say, well, LinkedIn is not for me. I'm concerned that someone may critique me based on what I posted. Well, you have to move in a way where critiques give you a perspective, not the perspective of whatever you're talking about. And frankly, in the professional world, getting a different perspective about a topic just opens up your mindsets to the possibilities of thinking differently. But I think LinkedIn, and you guys can challenge me, but LinkedIn is one of the number one sources that we use for candidates. Doesn't matter what level in the organization. Our candidate, we use Workday. It's directly tied to LinkedIn. There's other websites that it's tied to, but it's directly tied to LinkedIn. And someone mentioned earlier, your brand matters. How you show up on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of that is directly correlated with consideration for positions. But I think it's important to post. I would just say, I don't know the exact number of posts, but or the frequency, but I would just say at least twice a month at minimum, just to show that you're active. There's a natural algorithm that happens, even if you're not connected to someone. If you comment on someone that you're following, or maybe you don't even follow them, but you comment on a topic, there's an algorithm that's going to elevate your profile. And whether you have premium or the basics, it kind of unlocks some visibility to how many times your profile was clicked, who's looking at your profile, what industries. You can even, set it up to where your postings sort of trigger job openings that may be relevant to your profile. So you get in whatever you put into it, that's where you're going to get out of it. And so if you use it for your benefit, then you will see the return on investment come to play.
All right. Absolutely. I think I love that. It's a reciprocity. It's like any relationship. You get out what you put into it, right?
Yeah.
Alejandra, here's a question for you. This is from Ryan. He's talking about building a presence on LinkedIn that reflects real work and learning. He's an engineer, apparently. He's a technical guy. So how do you set up a LinkedIn presence without flipping into something that feels pushy or performative? What do you think?
I think it kind of goes back to what is it that you're trying to move into next, right? So what are you currently doing that helps position yourself better for that next opportunity that you have on the horizon? Additionally, staying authentic to yourself, right? You're not copying and pasting from other people's profiles. We want to get to know you at a professional level. Even if you are using tools like ChatGPT or any other AI tools, make sure that you are tweaking it so that the statements that are reflected on your profile are more reflective of who you are, the interests that you have, where you want to grow professionally, and the things that you're looking to move into next.
Yeah. And I do want to say
really quickly, Jasani, I think something that's important as far as not wanting it to feel pushy or performative. One of the best ways that I have found to do this is by getting real and raw and vulnerable and saying, hey, I messed this thing up and here's what I learned. Hopefully some of you can also learn from this thing. So you're getting vulnerable, and it's not like, oh, someone's calling in from the high castle and then talking down to everybody what to do, but you're real. And I think people are starting to crave real out in the world. So when you approach it in that way, view it through that lens of how can I share these lessons that I'm learning with as many people as possible, it doesn't come across as pushy or performative in any way, at least in my experience.
Yeah. And I think it's just being authentic, Sean. I think it just comes out with being authentic. You don't have to be a touchy-feely kind of person. Some of the best LinkedIn profiles I've seen are technical subject matter experts who are into some things that I will never get if I had 3 lifetimes, but they're in it. They got it. They're on the cutting edge of this engineering breakthrough. And that's what they're known for. And that's their path. We got a question directly to Chris. So Gregory's asking, what content would you like to see on someone's profile for a senior HR position? Somebody's trying to get a job. Go ahead, Greg.
I will answer this. And I will also say, just before I answer it, if this is not your LinkedIn, if you are not doing these things, I know tons of people who still get jobs without it. I think some of what we are describing are ways to add and help and boost your profile or your presence. But I will tell you, particularly to Greg's question, I just like to see intellectual curiosity. You don't have to be an expert, and I don't expect everyone to be an expert. I love to see intellectual curiosity. I love to see people resharing put in comment, reading like, hey, I found this article, I thought it was really interesting, or hey, I saw this thing and here's what I thought about it. Anything that demonstrates to me intellectual curiosity about the things that are going on that are impacting our work, which the beauty of working in a role like HR is that's like anything that touches the world of work, is something that I think is powerful. I will also tell you, I think particularly for those in HR, but it's true for everybody, there's a lot of stuff that should not show up in your LinkedIn. And that is the bigger mistake I see people make, particularly, in roles if you are representing your company, by which, HR is a representative of the company, but so is like a salesperson in an organization out here trying to generate sales on LinkedIn or whatever you're doing. When you are also finding yourself engaged in the type of comments or commentary that can land you in an HR office in real life, it's not good to do that on LinkedIn either. And remember, if you are employed, whatever you do, you are representing your company in some way, shape, or form. So when your company's name is on your profile and you're picking fights that are political or religious or social kind of hot topic issues in the country, and you're doing it in a space where you are representing your company, I've seen people land themselves in hot water. I've seen people lose jobs. I've seen people who had great interviews not get jobs for that. So I think keep that in the back of your mind, whether you like it or not. If your company's name is on your profile, you're representing your company. And so demonstrate intellectual curiosity, but also be very mindful that you are not just representing yourself, you're representing your company.
All right. Sean, you want to tackle this question from Cherie?
I do. Oh, man.
It's like I knew.
So,
there's a chat back here that you told me.
Majority of my life as the introvert, afraid to talk to people, and now I'm so fortunate to be able to speak on a lot of stages throughout the year. So this particular question, being a TEDx speaker, does that assist with obtaining keynote opportunities? Absolutely, it does. However, you also have to make sure that you're capturing the content and then promoting it in the right way. Not in a braggadocious, look at me, I was a TEDx speaker, but being able to take pictures and clips and little short form content and get it out there. Whenever you step into the world of becoming a paid keynote speaker, there's a lot of things that you have to start to understand, building relationships with these conference organizers, attending a lot of events, trying to MC, sit on panels. This is a long process where you have to get as much exposure as possible. And when you have that TEDx behind your name, you immediately have credibility. You just have to understand, how do I leverage that credibility to get me even more opportunities? And then you capture more content, and then all of a sudden you look up and you have mountains of social proof that you are who you say you are, that you can deliver the right message on stage and provide value to an audience.
Absolutely. Okay. So we have 6 minutes left. Wow. It's amazing how quickly an hour goes. So I'm going to answer one more question directly and really quickly, believe it or not. Somebody asked a question. They said, is premium worth it? Can you share the value add? I have premium. I pay for it every month. I think it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're a basic user and you're just, look, I just want to try to network and connect, I don't think it's worth the expense. I use it because it helps push the premium paid pushes the algorithm to get my posts to reach, because I am trying to be a thought leader and I'd like to do the public speaking thing. So it helps in that arena. But unless you're really trying to expand in that, or if you're a recruiter where you get the free LinkedIn credits where you can reach out to people, then I don't know really if it has an ROI on that. So we're going to transition to the last module. And so because we don't have a lot of time, this is going to be the Chris and Kiara show for about 2 or 3 minutes. We're going to shift focus on how to hit the ground running to set yourself up for success within your organization in 2026. And so what I'm going to do is, and again, guys, we're totally off script, ladies and gentlemen in chat, so they don't know what I'm about to say. So what I'd like to say is, Kiara, I'd like you to take it from the position of you're going to be at your same company. You come back January 6th. How do you set yourself up for success to be recognized by senior leaders for those next opportunities? Chris, I'm a guy, I just accepted a job offer in December, this past month. I start my new job January 6th. And so what should I do to make sure I set myself up for success in this new role in a new year? Ladies go first. Kiera, you go first, ma'am.
All right. So I'll say there's two things that you need to be confident in articulating. The first is you must be able to clearly articulate your readiness or your potential for that next opportunity, or the next big project that's going to give you exposure. The other is you have to be able to communicate the value that you're bringing to that organization. If you can't correlate your business acumen to like financial acumen and data that's driving the organization's success, you will be overlooked. I can't emphasize enough. Experience is not the only thing that's experience gets you to the table. I think that's the best thing to say it. The experience will get your foot in the door, but you have to articulate your readiness, which includes learning agility, and you have to articulate the value that you're bringing to the organization. I'm just going to leave with one quote just so that you guys can really see how this translates. But Korn Ferry and Creative Center for Leadership communicated that 70% of career advancement is driven by behaviors, relationship, and trust, not technical skills alone. So if you're coming in saying, I like what you did, Sean, like if you're coming in saying, I've got 20 years of experience and I deserve this. If you cannot translate that to outcomes, impact, you will not get chosen.
All right. Thank you, Kiera. Chris, in 2 minutes, can you talk about how you can start off a new role in 2026?
Hey, I'm going to pick up where Kiera left off. Now that you've got the job, I'll give you a number of tips. And the first one is stop talking about all the experience you had coming in the door. You're here now. So my number one is you got to learn the place. You need to understand the work. You need to understand the people. You need to understand the why behind all of it. So whether you're an individual contributor or a really senior leader, you're not coming in, unless you were tasked to come in to change things. And there are roles where sometimes that is true. If you were not mandated to come in and change something that's broken, then your job is to learn. And not walk in the door talking about how you did it at your other employer. That's a pretty easy way to turn people off. Talk about all of the questions you have about how and why your new employer does what they do. And then lastly, I think in addition to demonstrating that intellectual curiosity, ask a lot of questions. And questions that will help you not only understand that context, but questions that will help demonstrate that you are thinking and trying to understand the layer or two deeper. And then, finally, I think a huge thing that people overlook is to what Kiera just shared. It isn't just the job, it's the people. And so I do think you need to be very intentional about learning and understanding the people you work with. What are their motivations? What are they looking for and expecting of you? And you own the responsibility of understanding the expectations of your job. You own the responsibility of understanding how to calibrate your actions against those expectations and whether or not you're living up to that. So as much as we like to say it's a supervisor's job to give you helpful and impactful feedback, you are the number one benefactor of that relationship, of that feedback relationship. So you have a vested interest in asking a lot of questions to pull out the expectation and whether or not you're on track for that. But learn, ask questions, and please stop talking about the way you did it at your other company.
That's amazing. And on that note, we're going to wrap it up here. Ladies and gentlemen, first off, I want to say thank you. Thank you to our amazing advisory council. Alejandra had to drop off real quickly, but I want to thank you guys for sharing your expertise, sharing your holiday break. Thank you guys so much. And for those of you who are in the chat room, thank you guys for sharing this. And if you could type real quick and say if you enjoyed this, we might try to get this group. We might try to get this group back sometime in Q1. We'll see. We're all there's some pretty aggressive goals, but we're going to try to get this group back sometime in late Q1 to start this up again. So guys, if you want to connect with anybody here, we'll have their socials. We'll have their socials linked out there. But if you want to connect with me, here are some ways. I started a brand new YouTube channel over the weekend. I had one before, but it became more of a shorts thing. But I have a brand new YouTube channel. feel free to start the conversation because we want to keep this going. I have a special thing going on. So the first 100 subscribers for the new channel, if you go through the QRC code, and if you type the word salary in there, I'm going to send you a salary negotiation guide, right? Free. I'm just going to give it to you, right? And it talks about how to start conversations to help negotiate salaries. Also, the My Friend in HR podcast is on Apple, it's on Spotify. Feel free to connect on that. And we'll make sure we stay in contact. So I do want to take a moment to say thanks to everybody, right? I want to take a moment to say that I appreciate everybody taking time to be here, to learn more, to be able to have better careers. I am honored to go down this journey with you. I'm honored that you guys have allowed me in. I'm honored that more than 10,000 of you have started following us and following my content. And that's really what this is about. It's about giving back to leverage us all up because we can all win. There's not a shortage of grace. There's not a warehouse of it where there's a shortage. We can all lift each other up to win. And I want to say thanks to everybody for coming to join us. We're going to do this again next year at some point in time. But in the meantime, folks, I hope you have an awesome holiday season. Get some rest. Get ready to recharge because we're going to need it in 2026 because we're going to do what? We are going to hit that ground running because we are victors and not victims. And on a final note, remember, as always, that your job is meant to support your life. Your life is not meant to support your job. Happy holidays, everybody, and have a good one. We'll see you next year.